East Fishkill Planning Board meeting for April 18th, 2023. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Upcoming meeting dates are May 16th, 2023 and June 20th, 2023. We have two sets of minutes. I'd like to hold over the March minutes to review those at the next meeting, but for the February 21st, 2023 meeting minutes, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. We'll do the roll call, starting with Don.
Present.
Lori G.
John Eichman.
Richard Campbell.
Ed Miyoshi.
Sarah Bledsoe.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is really just to notify the board members. We do have an updated zoning map. It's been put into Dropbox and is available. But in talking with Michelle, we decided that it would be useful to have a training session for the board at some point. So we'll ask Jackie to send out an email and poll the board and Michelle to find a good time that works out for all of us. So the first item on the business portion of the meeting is subdivision. Is the applicant here? So if you'd like to just come up and just give us a quick update. I think since our last meeting, you've been to the zoning board.
Zoning board gave approvals, and I guess we're waiting for preliminary, if I'm not mistaken. You had read the resolution.
We do have a resolution, so you've accomplished everything, and let me see. If you'd be so kind, maybe just let everybody know your name.
Salvatore Speziali on 2808 Route 52, Hopewell Junction, New York.
Great, and if there's a sign-in sheet, go ahead and sign that in. So I'll read through the resolution. Spezial, two-lot subdivision, 2808 Route 52, the resolution offered by Planning Board member John Eichman. Whereas the applicant applied for a minor two-lot subdivision of an 18.14-acre parcel, which includes an existing residence. Whereas the applicant is proposing a shared driveway for the two lots and is seeking a shared driveway special permit. Shared driveways of the East Fishkill Zoning Code permitted under paragraph 194-67.1. Whereas to meet the conditions of that provision, shared driveway special permit, the applicant obtained a 4-foot variance from the requirements of that section of the zoning ordinance for a shared driveway measuring 12 feet wide when 16 feet is required. Whereas the applicant also obtained a 3-foot side yard variance for an existing 19-foot by 20-foot shed. And whereas a public hearing was opened on December 20th, 2022 and closed on March 21st, 2023, and whereas a negative declaration was adopted by the Planning Board on March 21st, 2023, so to be corrected to 2023, and now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby grants shared driveway special permit and subdivision approval for the above project as represented on a map prepared by Povil Engineering PC, dated October 28th, 2021, and last revised on February 28th, 2023, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, approval from Dutchess County Board of Health. Number 2, applicant shall fund an escrow in the amount to be determined by the town engineer for an environmental monitor during construction. Number 3, satisfactory resolution of all comments on the CPL review memo dated 12/19/22. Number 4, approval of the common driveway easement description by the town attorney. Number 5, satisfactory resolution of all comments in the New York State DOT letter dated March 8th, 2023. Be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the Planning Board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the applicant owner. May I have a second?
Second.
So we will do a...
I'm sorry, can I just have a question about one of these, if that's okay?
Certainly.
Michelle, number 2, fund and escrow to determined by the town engineer. Is that for the construction of the shared driveway or all construction?
It's usually for the entire construction site if they see fit that they need to have an environmental monitor out there, and usually there's some sort of pre-construction meeting and they discuss that and determine whether or not that's needed.
Okay.
We've been putting it as a standard condition because we've had some issues with stormwater recently, so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That's okay? Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote. Board Member Lori G.
Aye.
Ed Miyoshi.
Aye.
Sarah Bledsoe.
Aye.
Richard Campbell.
Aye.
Donald Pepe. And John Eichman. I vote aye. Carries. Very good. It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Have a good night.
You too.
Next item on the agenda is an adjourned public hearing for Fires Bridges subdivision. Could I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Oop, a little too much. How's that? That's pretty good, right? Brian Stacosta, Dane Stacosta Engineering, here tonight for the 3-lot subdivision for Mr. Bridges. This project's been in front of the board an awful lot. I think we're getting a little bit closer to where we're all comfortable. The plan updates that we've made were specific to our last meeting, which is revising the SWIP that we provided, again, to refresh, taking that rear lot, lot number 1, off the table for development. So we go from a 4-lot subdivision down to a 3-lot subdivision. There was a lot of drainage issues related to that rear lot that we advised the applicant that it's not a wise move right now to even consider any kind of development back there. So we took that off the table, revised the SWIP. Since then, we've had a constructive meeting with the town consultants, and what we were discussing was buffering of that lot 1, that rear hillside. We kept with the intent of having a permanent restrictive easement around the property, specifically toward the west, which incorporates steep slopes. And then we had the buffers north and south along the property line. The consultants expressed concern about potential future cutting of, let's say, the area in blue. And in talking to the applicant, from an economic standpoint and from a development standpoint and from his perspective, he was happy with identifying the area and putting restrictive notes on the plan specific to if he wants to do anything in that area, clearing any kind of land disturbance that he or anybody else who owns that property would have to come back in front of the board and go through the permitting process. He was uncomfortable with placing that entire area under a conservation easement where nothing can happen in there other than passive recreation. So I thought that was a fair compromise, that we don't have development on the table. From an engineering standpoint, I would never seek to try to get anything approved in that rear lot. From a stormwater standpoint, it would be considerable. But again, I'm not the owner, and his decision is to, let's put some restrictive language on that blue area that if he wants to, or whoever owns that piece would like to develop back there, they specifically know before anything happens that they have to come back in front of this board and seek whatever permits are required at that time. And I think that's the real update that we were looking to discuss on this project.
So you're indicating, Brian, that the blue area, it will be restricted both as to any future potential subdivision or development, but also restricted as to any further tree clearing? Did I understand that correctly?
I'm just saying, if there is any tree clearing or any development in that blue area, they have to come back in front of this board, whoever owns that piece of property, from now, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, they have to come back to this board and seek whatever approvals are required. What I'm saying is that the area in red, permanent, no disturbance, no tree clearing, that is permanent. But the area in blue, whoever buys this lot, whoever owns this lot knows that they have restrictions on there as it relates to disturbance, clearing, development.
Okay.
So Brian, he's willing to do a conservation easement on the red portion?
In the red portion.
Okay, and then a non-disturbance area as part of this subdivision on the blue portion?
Right, and then if anybody wants to come back a future date and explore developing that area, then they have that right. But they have to come back in front of this board first.
Brian, the distance between the back line where the red starts to where the blue line, up and down, what's the distance there?
You might be 300 feet.
300 feet?
The area in red, just to give you a comparison, the total lot is 18 acres. The area in red is 6.5 acres.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the more sensitive portions that we've heard from our neighbors, which is the downhill side of Devon Farms.
Correct.
That area down there, I think that totally encapsulates, protecting that area, and that's why it is so large. It is a steep slope area, so that's why we think that's important to,
And that would be all put into the conservation easement, never to be touched?
yes, area in red, yes. Area in blue, he's got to go through the
Understood.
process.
Okay.
So just, and I'm sorry, because I can't see the topo lines that well with the shading. Where roughly is the crest of that hill? Is it in the red or is it in the blue?
So you see like say the southern point where it comes to a tip almost? If you see my hand,
Yeah, I can see the cursor.
so right here is probably the high point of the parcel.
Okay.
It continues upward for probably another 200 feet in elevation. That's the top of Devon Farms.
So that's towards the red?
Red's, so if you see where my cursor is?
Yes.
So we're going downward this way. So as we go north, we're going down in elevation.
So it's downward slope towards that? Okay.
Correct.
Did you say it was 6.5 acres?
The portion in red, correct.
Okay.
And the portion in blue, it's, I don't know, it's probably 10 acres maybe,
I was going to say, it's more than,
10 and a half acres, I think I ran the numbers if I remember correctly.
Got it.
And that blue line, it basically, where it's established is currently where he has his clearing, where he has his house constructed, so it's pretty definitive.
Okay. Are there any other questions by board members or town professionals? Are there any members of the public that are here to speak in favor of or in opposition to the project?
I'm not in favor of or opposed to, I'm just looking for clarity. My name is Rick Martin, 198 Devon Farms Road, or as it's shown on here, Lot 37. So I just want to understand that it looks to me like where he butts my property at 37 and going down the hill, that red buffer will be the woods behind all the homes on Devon Farms? Okay. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sign in.
Thank you. Yeah, please do sign in, yes. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak? If not, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Michelle, do we need a negative declaration for this?
Yes, so there is one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just gave you.
I've lo-
And then also,
Thank you.
when you get to the resolution, I want to, based on the clarity that Brian just gave me, I want to add an additional condition. Okay?
Great.
And a little language, so I'll help you with those conditions.
Okay. So negative declaration, notice of determination of non-significance. This was an unlisted action on Eder Road. Name of the action, Fires Bridges 3-lot subdivision. And I'm just going to summarize the neg deck, a full copy of which can be viewed in the planning department at any time. The proposed action would result in the subdivision of a 23.093 acre lot into 3 lots in the R2 zoning district. The proposed residential use would be consistent with zoning and neighborhood character. The proposed project would not be expected to result in any significant adverse impacts on the environment for the following reasons. Number 1, it will not generate a significant amount of additional vehicles, noise, or emissions levels. Number 2, it will not significantly affect rare or endangered species of animal or plant or habitat of such species. It will not have any impacts to historic or archaeological resources. It will not have any impacts related to hazardous materials. Will not result in a significant effect on air, water quality, or ambient noise levels for adjoining areas. will not be subjected to unacceptable risk of flooding or major geological hazards, will not have a substantial aesthetic effect, will not adversely affect any surface water or groundwater, will not allow for an improper uses within specified zoning districts, will not result in adverse cumulative impacts, that will not result in adverse growth-inducing impacts, and will not conflict with the town's comprehensive plan. Could I have a motion to approve this neg deck?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on to the resolution. Resolution of final subdivision approval for Fyrus Bridges on Eder Road. Whereas the applicant applied for a minor 4-lot subdivision of a 23.093 acre parcel, which includes a residence that is already under construction. Whereas concerns were expressed by the public over the amount of tree removal and the potential for stormwater impacts due to the site topography. Whereas to reduce disturbance to the site and the potential for stormwater impacts, the proposed 4-lot subdivision was redesigned as a 3-lot subdivision. Whereas a public hearing was opened on September 13th, 2022 and closed on April 18th, 2023. Whereas a negative declaration was adopted by the Planning Board on April 18th, 2023. Now therefore be resolved that the Planning Board hereby grants subdivision approval for the above project as represented on a map entitled Bridges subdivision prepared by Dan Stacosa Engineering PC, dated May 23rd, 2022, and last revised March 30th, 2023, subject to the following conditions. The establishment of a non-disturbance area is approved by the Planning Board and shown on the
I want to make a correction there, sorry. The establishment of an approximately 10.5 acre non-disturbance area.
Okay. No disturbance or tree removal is permitted in the non-disturbance area except for the removal of dead and diseased flora. Any disturbance to the non-disturbance area would require further approvals from the Planning Board. And number
I have
two.
another condition here to insert.
Okay.
Establishment of a conservation easement on approximately 6.5 acres as shown on the subdivision plat.
So that's number 2. Number 3, approval from Dutchess County Board of Health. Number 4, applicant shall fund an escrow in the amount to be determined by the town engineer for an environmental monitor during construction. Number 5, New York State DEC tree clearing restrictions related to the protection of the Indiana bat. Number 6, satisfactory resolution of all comments on the CPL review memo dated 4/18/23. And number 7, sign off from the town highway department for driveway locations and site distance. And are there any other conditions to be noted?
Question, Michelle, do we usually need to say something about in a form acceptable to the town attorney for the easements?
Sure, we could add that in a conservation uniform, sure.
Both for the conservation and the
Non-disturbance area.
non-disturbance.
Yep, I can add that.
Okay, so both of those will be subject to approval by the town attorney.
And filed with the deed.
Okay, be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the planning board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the applicant owner. Could I have a second for this?
Second.
We will do a roll call vote. Board member Lori G.
Aye.
Ed Miyoshi.
Aye.
Sarah Bledsoe.
Aye.
Richard Campbell.
Aye.
Donald Pepe. And John Eichman. I'm an aye. It carries.
Yes.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is Farm View Estates at Phillips Farm. So may I have a motion to reopen this public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Good evening.
All right, I think that gets us a little closer. All right, Brian Stacosta, Dane Stacosta Engineering, Farm View Estates. To give you an update on what we've done on the plan since we met, we've updated our SWIP to include our stormwater redesign. The design In the back of the property mimics the front of the property now. It's an infiltration basin, taking advantage of the gravelly soils that we have on site. It appears that when we made the submission, the hard copy made it to the town, but the digital copy of the SWIP report didn't make it in the link that we sent, or it wasn't uploaded, or there was an issue. So it's my understanding that town engineer hasn't had a chance to review that SWIP yet, but understanding that we're looking forward to work with the town engineer with that updated report. Looking at, there was a conversation that we had with the town consultants regarding irregularly shaped lots. If you read the town code, anytime you propose a lot line at either a new town road or a street, they should be at a 90-degree angle. The lot lines that we show on this plan right here have that 90-degree angle on them. We can provide further dimensioning to bolster that requirement. The one portion that we discussed last time was the 10-foot leg, let's say, that came down from lot number 6. As we discussed, the adjacent homeowners that we've been working with, one of the homeowners would like to purchase lot 6. That's the lot that has a majority of the rear stormwater on it. And he was looking to, him and his neighbors were looking for an avenue to keep a buffer between lots 11, 8, and 7.
Can you just indicate them on the map for us?
Yeah.
Yes,
Your
okay.
fingers,
Yes.
with the cursor, just be helpful.
Let me put my glasses on. Let's see, going blind. All right, this is the pond, right? This is the pond that we changed to mimic the pond in the front, which is an infiltration basin. Here is lot number 6. This is the house that we're proposing off the cul-de-sac. If you look down in here, there was a strip of land that we showed to be associated with this lot 6. Because originally we were trying to figure out a way that this homeowner, who also lives right here, and this is the same homeowner who submitted the letter to the board in favor of the project, he would like to purchase this lot. And what we did is, he's also friendly and has family here that own several homes along, let's see, this is lot 11, lot 8, and lot 7. Just having some form of protection that they would ensure that this vegetation would remain. The existing homes that are located, let's say, to the south of us are very close to the property line. They're older homes, it was prior to zoning, so they're pretty close to our sideline. So when we were working with them and we were describing how the stormwater worked, we were trying to find a mechanism to kind of keep this area green. Understanding that this may create a conflict with how we define irregularly shaped lots, we're going to move off of that concept and just have that be a forever green area. And we'll work with the town consultants to formulate that and memorialize that area would be forever green. So instead of having that leg come down, we would just come back straight to the property line. I think the intent was there, but from a code standpoint, it may have been a little bit of a gray area. But we'll work with the town consultants to rectify that.
I suspect that we could maybe create another non-disturbance area, similar to what we just did.
Okay.
Yep. So that takes care, I think, of some of the major comments that we had related to stormwater and irregularly shaped lots. We had the opportunity, actually the day of the submission deadline, I had a meeting with the town highway department at 9 o'clock. And I met with him and we went over snow easement placement in the cul-de-sac. And just talking with Ken, we repositioned snow removal areas on both north and the south side of the cul-de-sac. We repositioned some of the driveways on lots 7 and 8 to accommodate those snow easement areas. So if you look, here's the cul-de-sac. If you look over in here, here's one snow easement here. And then if you come down in here, we have another snow easement here. So it's as you're coming in, you're kind of pushing like this instead of turning around and pushing behind you where we originally had them. So now it's more convenient for the highway department or whoever's plowing to kind of just push forward in a natural movement. One of the other things that we talked about with Ken was providing access to this lower stormwater basin along lot number 10.
On 82, right,
On
because of
82.
the,
So
there's like an equipment type.
Yeah, understanding we don't want to be accessing off of 82 and can be a little hairy sometime with speed. So what we did is we have a natural drainage easement here. So when talking to Ken, I just penciled in, a rough area to come in along, the side here and have a turnaround area. And we also expanded the easement so that they can get equipment up and behind and around this infiltration area. There shouldn't be, from a maintenance standpoint, there shouldn't be a lot of maintenance associated with the actual infiltration basin. Again, going back to, we're going to have a hydrodynamic separator right at the entrance of the subdivision. And what that does is stormwater comes down, it spins around, the heavier stuff drops, the cleaner water then goes down to the infiltration basin. So with these hydrodynamic separators, there is a maintenance program that goes along with it with certain specifications and certain cleaning aspects of those. Those will be detailed in our SWIP that we'll run through with the town engineer and highway department to make sure that we're all on the same page and it's memorialized correctly. But from a maintenance standpoint, there really shouldn't be maintenance in that infiltration basin area. That same concept has been carried, as I said, into the back. Originally, we had a bioretention facility, plantings, maintenance. They can become tiresome as time goes on if they're forgotten about. So again, we take that same concept. We're going to have that in the back. Hydrodynamic separator, infiltration through the basin, same kind of maintenance and cleaning responsibilities associated with that pond. We will have access, it'll have its own separate access to the rear pond in between the property lines. We won't be traveling down any of the residences' driveways. They'll have their own access. And in talking to the town engineer in highway, one of the new things that they want to do is to prevent people from putting fences up, is to actually line this corridor, this maintenance corridor with like a split rail fence or some kind of demarcation that they know that, you can't encroach in this area. Maintenance and accessibility has to be maintained. So we did try to incorporate that into that rear pond design so that people know. We have plantings shown along the berm in the infiltration basin along Route 82. We can sit down with the town engineer and we can bolster that plan if need be to provide additional plantings, or if they want a guide rail there.
How high is the berm at this point?
I think we have, it's either 2 or 3 feet, and then we have, I believe, 6 to 8 foot pines on top of that.
And what's the separation between the edge of pavement and the berm, I guess? Like how much, I'm just thinking of safety for cars.
Yep. Try to estimate it here.
Is there a DOT requirement?
We're not in the DOT right away, but I want to say from edge of pavement, remember, edge of pavement to the actual tree plantings, maybe 10 feet, 12 feet, just eyeing it up.
And then what about to the berm?
That's the berm and trees on top. So if you would like we could do like a heavy timber guide rail.
Yeah, I'm not familiar if DOT has requirements, if there's basins along their, somewhat near the edge of pavement, so when cars go off to prevent cars from entering the basins. I don't know if there's any sort of berm height requirement or width or anything like that. And I don't know if you're
They do sometimes look at that, but if there's, have you gone in for the highway permit yet?
We've submitted the permit, we've submitted
Okay.
this plan.
Has anybody looked at it yet? Because I have gotten comments back on other projects where they see a pond right next to the road, and then they want to know, or how are you going to protect or prevent vehicles from going into that? So that's probably something you are going to have to deal with.
It'll either be a heavy timber guide rail, or it'll be just a standard DOT-style guide rail. I think from a functionality standpoint, I think that heavy timber looks a little bit nicer, but
Okay, so we were concerned about, we wanted to berm the front because we were concerned about the visual impacts, and then I believe now you've got plantings along the top. So the berm is going to be about 2 feet tall, assuming that's okay with DOT. How wide is the planting area on top of the edge of the
I
berm?
think it was 5 feet. It was enough for a decent-sized base for
Okay,
the
so
ball.
I've read through some of the requirements, and sometimes DOT will specify they want width or height. I think maybe we just need to clarify that at some point. I don't know if that's something we would do before we approve it or let that happen as part of the highway work permit. But as far as you're concerned, you're probably going to want to make sure that the visual integrity of the corridor is preserved. And so 2 feet with plantings on top. And is it evergreen plantings that you're proposing at this point? So,
And again, we're inside our property, we're not in the DOT right away. Again, we'll coordinate with DOT, obviously from a safety standpoint, but I think it's, whatever the DOT feels comfortable with, we will work with them and provide them. I mean, what I've typically done, I've typically just done a guide rail. I just did 2 recently along Route 82 and then Route 52. And it was just honestly, it was 3 feet, and then we were allowed to go into a stormwater area. But if the DOT wants additional planting, we will provide.
So you put the guide rail at the base of the berm, like right alongside the berm? Or the length of the berm only? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, you had a transition.
So that's what you'll be seeing.
And what will be the initial height of the plantings on top of the berm?
Standard, I think it was 6 to 8 feet was
6 to
our
8,
standard
okay.
tree planting.
Got it. The access roads to the infiltration basins, are those paved?
Scott, do you want those paved, or do you want them like a hardened surface?
Hard surface.
Hardened surface. So it would
Okay.
probably be like a piece of geotech and some gravel on top compacted.
Got it. Other questions?
Brian, just with you mentioned up between lots, I think it was 6 and 7, you're going to have the split rail on either side of the right-of-way. Who maintains those fences? Does that become the town's responsibility, or is it the property owner's responsibility?
Well, they're going to be inside a drainage easement area. I guess that's well, the applicant's going to have to put them up as part of road dedication, and I would assume maintenance responsibility would go to the district that would be created, Scott?
That's what I'm thinking. It'd be a drainage district formed here.
Yeah. So each individual taxpayer would pay a certain assessment to maintain whatever drainage we're proposing in that little community. They will take care of maintenance.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Are there any members of the public here to speak in favor of or in opposition to the project? Come ahead, and if you would, please tell us your name and sign in up here at the podium. Thank you.
My name is Andreas Seifert. We're the neighbors for over 81 years over there. I just had a question about lot number 6 and that infiltration system to Brian. Brian, that infiltration system, can I walk over here? In the back, that's not part of lot 6, is it? You gotta bring it down, I guess.
I think it is part of lot 6.
We were gonna purchase lot 6. You had planned on that.
Let me try to zoom up here.
Yeah. You going down?
And try to use the microphone where possible, if you guys would, please.
Lot number 6, the infiltration system that's down, I guess, down in the bottom of the gully there, that's not part of lot 6. That's a separate piece of property, I guess.
It'll be part of lot 6. It'll have an easement over it.
Okay, so can I just walk over there to point out, make sure we're clear? Lot 6 is here.
Yeah.
That will be part of the lot 6 property.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be part of the property, and it'll have an easement over
An
it.
easement,
For
like an
the
8-foot
town.
wide driveway?
For the town, for
An
that.
8-foot wide driveway. And who'll maintain that driveway? Will it be paved or,
It'll be,
Be a little wider than 8 feet, maybe 10 feet, but
will I be responsible for it or no? That's, okay. That's it. All right.
Okay.
That's it. Everything changes in life, and we work great with the developers. They communicate with us, and they've been very kind. So, thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. Any other members of the public here to speak in favor or in opposition to the project? If not, I think, so we still have, quite a bit of work to be done on stormwater? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We weren't able to see the SWIP, so we'd like to see that, make sure. I think the big things are, we'd like to make sure that the volume in the ponds are correct, and then get them moving along on finalizing the plans. I think a lot of their pieces of the big pieces of the puzzle are falling into place, but there's a lot of little cross-checks and little items and making sure that the details are correct. So I do think that having a meeting, maybe if we could set up a meeting at the town hall, that would make a lot of sense.
DOT.
all for it.
And I think, yeah, it would be helpful, Rich Campbell just mentioned, to have a little more information on the DOT and what their likely requirements are and how that's going to shake out on the berm.
Yeah. Are we in a
Design.
position, based upon that we didn't have any public comment tonight, and I think we have a path forward, are we in a position to close the public hearing tonight?
Do we have any other issues to consider?
I mean, I don't know about this. I mean, the only thoughts that I have is how likely is it the stormwater basins would have to change in size, take up increasing, I don't know if that's something that would be of concern to you guys, if the basins have to be enlarged or.
Well, and there were some questions
or
about
if you don't
lot
care
line
about- I mean, You
readjustments.
basically know where they're located. I don't know if that affect you or if the berm or anything isn't.
And we're going to get a revised map, right? Because you're taking out the odd-shaped lot.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're taking out the odd-shaped lot. Again, we've had a preliminary stormwater design, and I think the basin that we're concerned about is the one in the front, and that hasn't changed. It's the one in the back that's changed. We've submitted some soil testing that we've had done. I'm confident from a sizing standpoint. The basin in the front, I'm very confident on. The basin in the back, I'm confident on too. However, the town engineer hasn't had the chance to review it yet, so I think these are technical items. Specific to area, what we try to do is keep these as compact as possible while getting the appropriate volume. There is area to maneuver if these ponds grow 3 feet maybe in one direction. I see that as a max. When we run these numbers, we always try to we don't undersize them because we have to prove that they work. So from a sizing standpoint, I don't see any major changes. Tinkering with grading and tree placement and guide rail, we have to go through that motion, and it is what it is. It is what DOT says it is.
Got it.
And they couldn't chime in to change that, though?
We're not in the right of way.
Okay.
So at one point, we had discussed that you were going to do it in 2 phases. Is that still the case? Phase 1 is like kind of the front, and then phase 2 is the back. There was a question about water access. Has that been resolved? We didn't talk about it last meeting, so I wasn't sure if that had been resolved since.
So this parcel was identified when they did the EPA funding and the extension of Hopewell North. And this parcel was specifically allocated 6 service connections. So technically, that's why we have the phase 1, which shows a certain number of lots being developed. At such time that the town has capacity, and they obtain the system, and they own the system from the EPA, there will be capacity for us to move into phase 2. There'll be capacity in the system for other developments to come online. So we need certain aspects to carry this to, a phase 2. But, the intention is phase 1 to get it installed, and, hopefully the town has more capacity in the future.
Is there any indication on timeline as far as the capacity is concerned?
That's out of my pay grade. But obviously, hopefully soon. I think everybody would love to have the town water at full capacity, so.
Okay. If there's no objection, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. We'll carry this over to future meeting to hear about stormwater and some of the other issues, and look forward to talking to you then.
Yeah, Rich, I can reach out to you. We can set up a time?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
So we should make sure Scott's there, too.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public hearing for Mary Lane subdivision.
Thanks, Rich.
Have a motion to open the public hearing for Mary Lane subdivision.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good evening.
Good evening. So I'm Regina Davis. I live at 10 Mary Lane. I think from the last meeting, they were looking for the exact location of the septic and the well. So Hopewell Septic came yesterday to plot that out, and it will be put on the map for the Board of Health and then sent to you before the next meeting.
Okay, are you able to kind of describe whether it still encroaches in certain ways on the town right-of-way that you're going to be deeding to the town?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Does not?
Yeah. So this is just like the kind of drawing they did, but it'll put more formally on the map, so I'll give that to you, right?
Okay. And were there any other issues that we had discussed that we might get clarification on?
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually defer this to Christian because he's been working with the engineer. I think he was just needing some clarification about the location of the existing septic fields because there is 10-foot separation distance between where a lot line goes and the septic fields are supposed to be, and you can get a waiver for it as well, but he understands that better than I do, so I'll let him describe it.
Yeah, basically, the biggest issue, or the biggest question that we had is where the existing SDS is, and just to make sure that it's not within the area that the town's going to take. Now, if it is within 10 feet of the new right-of-way or within 10 feet of the proposed lot line, then the county health, they can, be appealed to, provide a variance, or they call it a waiver. But that's a matter for the health department. We just want to make sure that the town isn't going to be encumbered with existing septic system that they're going to have to maintain, or in case something goes wrong and you have to dig it up or repair it, they just want to make sure that, what's yours is yours and what's the town is the town's. And we had, just various small items on bookkeeping, some questions on the descriptions that were provided, but the septic system, that's the most important thing that we had on this application.
So what it is likely, they'll have to apply for a waiver? Did I understand from your comments or not?
It depends on where that existing system
Okay,
was found.
so obviously everything's subject to that. Any questions by board members or town professionals? If not, I'll open it to the public. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak for or against the project? Yes, sir. And please let us know who you are and sign in.
How's it going? Matthew Segnet, 11 Maple Place. We just have a question. It may not be for here necessarily. We're all for the subdivision. It's just a matter of if I want to build later on my side, we have the property to the back. So both properties back to back. So I just want to make sure that down the line, we're not prevented from building a garage or a shed on our property that would be almost back to back with the house that would be built. That's all, but it's not.
Got it.
Yeah, I think I could speak to that.
Okay.
Any project you may want to proceed with, you would just have to comply with your setback requirements. Anything that happens on your adjoining piece, that other piece, wouldn't affect you.
Correct.
You have to comply with your setbacks, or go to the zoning.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that the setbacks wouldn't change with
They
the
do not
building.
change. They're fixed on your piece.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? If not, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so you'll be preparing a map and coming back before the board, and I guess you can choose the time and place when you come back, but likely we'll see you next meeting?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Rising Sky Housing on Donovan Drive. Donovan Drive, I'm having difficulty speaking tonight. 9,000 square foot building on 2.047 acres. And so I'll accept a motion to open this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Fun to say. Should have brought the hard copies. We got the other guys, John. There we go. Now we're back to mine.
There we go.
Okay, Joseph Berger, Berger Engineering for the applicant. We're proposing a 9,000 square foot contractor's yard on about a 2-acre parcel. We'll have subsurface sewage disposal. 9,000 square foot on about 2 acres. We're going to have a subsurface sewage disposal system for the sewage, individual well for our water. The parking for the trucks will be in the rear, and entrance will be the front, where the employees will park in the front. It's basically just for the placement and storage of the contractor's vehicles in their small internal office, so they do their paperwork. This will not be for customers to come by, it's just for a place for the trucks to go during the evening. We'll take them out during the day to do their work. Basically it.
I know you've described this for us before, but could you describe again the fencing and landscaping that separates your building from the next door
Absolutely.
child care center?
So
Thank you.
the site is next door to the daycare center. What we're proposing to do is put a berm up in the front portion, which is closer to the cul-de-sac. There's going to be a retaining wall because we're going to be slightly higher. And then there's going to be a fence on top of that for the screening, which would be the first couple hundred feet. From the building back, there'll be a series of trees, and our parking lot that we're in the rear will be cut down into the earth, so there'll be a natural earth berm between the parking lot and the view of the neighbor to the, which would be in this case to the east. Well, actually to the north, excuse me, to the north. So we're going to be placing a series of trees and that earth berm, and we believe that will give more than sufficient for not just any sound that you would hear, but visual. So.
Nice.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about the mitigation for the existing homes as to what they're going to be looking down on?
Well, there's no homes nearby. The only thing only thing nearby will be the daycare center to the north.
Oh, no, behind that property, though, there's like, you described there were impacts to people on, what, Nanook Drive and some of the other, like Glen Ridge Road?
They're far away. There's the heavy woods between us and them. I don't believe they're going to see anything. There's a heavy woods right there. Well, if they do look down on it, you're just going to see if you cleared all the trees and you could actually look through the trees, you would be looking at just the back of a commercial building.
How about other landscaping that you're planning, and maybe describe the lighting as well?
Well, the lighting will just be used for when the vehicles are there. At nighttime, it'll be turned off when nobody's there. It'll just be for the parking lot, minimum lighting in the back rear, and it'll be dusted on, so it'll come on as the trucks, especially only in the winter time, but once the trucks park and there's nobody there, the lights will go off. So they won't be there 24/7.
Automatic on and off?
Yeah, they'll be automatic to go off when there's no one there, yes.
Okay.
Are they going to, where are you proposing the lighting? Are you doing wall packs on the building, or
No,
how?
we have some light poles and some wall packs, yes.
Okay, so typically we require the wall packs, well, to the extent they can be, but the lighting, the fixtures to be shielded and so that they're full cut off, and also shielded towards areas like the woods?
They are.
Okay.
They are, and we had a company do a lighting plan to show that.
Okay.
But they are shielded and they are dark sky compliant. Yes.
How many trips in and out of this site do you expect in a given day of both trucks and cars?
20 to 30, somewhere in that range, not a lot.
And those will be throughout the day, pretty much?
Usually in the morning when they come in,
And then-
employees will come in, pick up their truck and leave.
Okay.
End of the day, they'll come back. There may be a few during the day, job got shut down early, job closed early, come back in early. That happens in a normal construction. Typically, employees will show up, pick up their vehicle and leave. And for the most part, construction is during the day. There are occasions where some contractors will have to work at night, but those trucks would then leave and then come back. So not a large quantity of traffic expected for a project like this.
Other questions from board members or town professionals?
Yeah, I have one question. You were describing the buffering, visual buffering, but is it, I'm concerned also about in the event that a child could come from the daycare center and get into your area, is it going to be pretty much fenced off along the entire length of the daycare property so that no children can actually enter the?
The fence is the whole way, yes.
Okay.
The fence is the only place where there's no plantings would be on top of the retaining wall, which is the first 200 feet. Once we have room for planting, we have plantings in addition to the fence.
Okay.
So we don't want anybody migrated onto the property, yes.
Is there going to be both equipment and trucks here, or just trucks, or what's exactly going to be here?
Well, we don't know what contractor would rent the place, but typical construction equipment.
Will they be inside only, or inside and outside?
No, the truck, we have the outside, that's the parking in the back with the outside, but they also have room inside for them to move vehicles in.
Anything that's stored outside, is that going to be on a paved surface? Did we talk about an oil water separator and container?
Everything is paved, and the entire rear parking lot drains to an oil water separator.
Okay.
We also have a wash station in the corner.
And that goes,
The wash only there.
right.
And that wash station, as well as the entire rear parking lot, drains to the oil water separator.
Okay. So just one question, being that it's contractor, I don't know about limiting the times or hours of operation, but, backup alarms, whether or not somebody comes in at 4 a.m. or comes in at 11 p.m., whether the backup alarms could be offensive to neighbors, even though they may not see the building, will they hear the backup alarms?
Most trucks do have them, so they will come on, most likely.
So there may have to be some time restrictions, I don't know, because it may bounce off the back of the building, and
Okay,
particularly in the winter months.
true. There's a lot of trees in the back, but we can look at that.
I just think that's something that needs to be looked at.
I'll look at that and look at sound. I'll look at
Unless
the
you can do some
evaluation.
sound attenuation at the
That's
top
what
of
I
it.
meant, that we
yeah.
may be able to do something on the top where we attenuate it further.
Okay.
There's a lot of trees up there, but we can do something to make sure that increase, if there's some issue with sighting, we can certainly increase some landscaping there, but certainly I can look at some sound attenuation on the hill so that sound doesn't back.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our engineering comments are fairly straightforward. They still have to, provide a SWIP.
And we're in
I have
the
some
process.
questions. Yeah, some questions regarding how you're going to handle stormwater, and that's coming. Regarding the lighting plan, I think you might just want to have your consultant just take a look at those levels. There's some very high levels. I think it's just a
That was the
a
first
glitch in
round
their
at
model.
the deadline, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aware that we sent it back already for modifications, but it came in the day of the deadline. So,
But, just want to, take a look at those.
yeah, we'll have them cut down.
And, but basically, it's drainage and then lighting at this point, but, they still have to provide additional information.
And ideally, if you could keep a maximum of 5-foot candles, because that's plenty of light.
We're trying to
So
keep-
that would be,
Trying to keep 5 and less.
yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
we
great.
didn't get a chance for a second round. We do have it, but we didn't have a second chance for the deadline. We will have a modified one. Just also to bring up, we have had this before the health department for the sewage and the water, and they basically have signed off waiting for, obviously, seeker and everything to be done before they send in. But we do have that. Stormwater SWIP is under review, under design, and we're going to get that to your engineer shortly.
There's any plans to have like salt storage, or definitely no salt
No,
storage?
no outdoor materials.
Okay.
Okay, are there any members of the public who are here to speak about the project?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a line of them tonight.
Yeah, please do sign in and then let us also know your name.
My name is George Krajewski. I reside at 96 East Hook Cross Road. So I think I'm the closest residential parcel to the project. My property line, the rear of my property line, backs up to a vacant parcel, which then backs up to the rear of the property line in question. So I have a visual here. I don't know if that helps. But basically, it looks like I'm about 440 plus or minus feet from the site. So, my concerns as a homeowner would be environmental concerns with any fuel storage. We're on a well, and the neighboring properties are on wells as well. So I'm concerned with fuel storage, whether it be, diesel, gas, whatever chemicals may be there. Also, the hours of operation are a concern, and I think you touched upon the beepers, backup beepers. That would be, of course, a concern with being only 440 plus or minus feet away. So the hours of operation would be a concern. Idling engines, backup beepers, music, maybe shouting, voices at potentially, very early hours. So as a homeowner, would be a concern. I just wanted to have it on record that there are some residential properties close by. I know there's been talk that there's woods and there's no residential properties, but again, I've estimated about 400 plus or minus feet from the site. So I'm sitting above it, so I'm looking down. I'd be looking down on the commercial property. But also lighting would be a concern too. What hours are those lights on? How bright they are? I just wanted to have some of my concerns on record because I am a homeowner, which is very close by. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Berger, would you like to maybe respond particularly to the question about fuel storage?
Sure. We took another look at the fuel storage, and we've removed the tank from the plan, as you'll see, deciding not to do that.
Okay.
We listened to the board, we thought about the neighbors and said, well, let's just remove that way it's one less concern.
There's no fuel storage there at all?
No diesel fuel, no fuel for the trucks. Sorry, no fuel for the
He
trucks.
said there'll be no fuel storage on site.
Storage tank other than, we have the propane for heating, but no fuel. We had a large fuel tank there before, as you remember, and we've decided to remove that.
Okay, got it.
And no, we're not storing any chemicals, we're not storing any salt or sand.
Very good. Other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Come ahead and sign in and let us know who you are.
My name's Adam Tinter. I live in the neighborhood, 11 Tamarack Drive. So my concern is as a homeowner in the...
Sorry, if you don't, folks, we can't hear.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Sure. Hold on one second. I'll just finish this here for you. So my concern is if any infrastructure issues have been taken into consideration now that we're talking about 20 to 30 more on the heavier duty side of trucks coming in and out of the neighborhood. That road is a 2-lane road, which already services the highway department. Now the Amazon warehouse, which comes off of 84 onto Lime Kiln, only a few hundred feet up the road. If there's any infrastructure considerations being taken, aside from quality of life, which has already been mentioned, lighting, sound, that sort of thing, to the residential neighborhood, to the residents of that neighborhood. I don't live directly adjacent to the property, but I live within the Wikipe neighborhood, and so infrastructure issues, traffic, noise, those types of quality of life and hardware issues are a concern.
I think maybe in response to your question, I think we'd probably, and Scott might be able to back me up on this, would consider 20 to 30 additional vehicles in a day to be a relatively minor addition to traffic, and so I'm not aware of any infrastructure things that are planned at this point.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting, this is an industrial parcel.
Correct.
We're not rezoning it to industrial. This was industrial, so.
This has always been zoned industrial. Any other questions, comments by members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
Elaine Lee, I live on Griffin Lane. There's 100 acres behind my property on Griffin Lane that is above, before the board for a 700,000 square foot warehouse and a 200,000 square foot warehouse. And that 100 acres abuts up to this property. So I want to know, this property that we're talking about today, how many acres is that? And how this is going to affect what's before the board?
So I can respond to that. The project you're referring to was brought in as a sketch plan purely for discussion. So we do not have an application at this point before us, so we are not considering that. This obviously is substantially different. This is a 9,000 square foot building on basically 2 acres and change. So if that other project you're referring to were ever to actually make a formal application,
Yes.
there will be a fairly long process of consideration, and there will be public hearings for that as well.
Yeah, because-
And you will be notified.
Yes, I know that, but I'm just figuring, if we have 20 to 30 trucks, heavy-duty trucks coming in on this property, that warehouse is going to be affected. So we're going to have a lot of activity as homeowners. And this, and I understand that it's all zoned industrial, it's been industrial forever. But I'd like to make sure that the amount of trucks that are going in and out of this property remains at 20 to 30, or whatever they said it was going to be. That we don't get an increase of another 30, keep adding on over the years, because it's going to be a logistic nightmare for the homeowners. So that's my concern.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
One thing, if I could just, to address your question about that other sketch plan, that much larger project, one of the things we did point out to them as a preliminary comment was that there would need to be infrastructure improvement on that section of Lime Kiln Road to handle that volume of traffic.
Yeah.
We don't believe this volume of traffic warrants that, but certainly anything of that magnitude would require significant improvement on Lime Kiln.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, just one question.
Certainly.
I'm just curious, it wasn't clear to me earlier when I came in with this particular project. So I know there's going to be 20 to 30 in and out trips of the property, but is there a limitation on the capacity, like parking spaces, of how many vehicles can be stored there, and also the size of the vehicle? Meaning, are they restricted to, let's say, under a 4-ton vehicle? In other words, let's say like an industrial landscaping dump truck might not be suitable for that space. I know that there's different classes of industrial vehicles, if that has been discussed at all.
I think, Mr. Berger, could you respond to the number of spaces that you have there? Because there's a restriction just by dint of the size of the property, right?
I believe we have 17 truck spots, which are for the large, typical contractor's truck. We're not talking huge tractor trailers, but good contractor size. The cars in the front are your standard 9x18s for your residential cars. And then there's spaces within the building for a smaller truck, a pickup truck, maybe a dump truck to go inside, or if it's a landscape, a person who rents a spot, they'll put their leaf machine in their chipper in there, so it won't be outside. But it's limited. We can't add any more. This is the limit. Any changes, obviously, would come back to you for approval. So whatever we build will be kept at that limit. There's really no method for it to grow over time.
So I could respond to that. The general use regulations are in the zoning code. Any vehicles that are stored overnight on in any contractor's yard must be in an approved, site plan approved parking space. So whatever number of parking spaces are approved as part of the site plan would be the capacity that they could have on that site, unless they were to come back to the board and request additional spaces and have to get it approved.
So 17 parking spaces for trucks, but how many for other cars, like employee vehicles, and those type of parking spaces? I couldn't hear the number.
So how many overall parking spaces are on your site?
There's 12 residential, passenger cars.
12 passenger cars and 17 trucks.
So those are just for the employees.
Is the outdoor storage limited just to tenants of the building itself? You're not renting it outdoor spaces? It just comes with the indoor space?
These spaces would be relevant to the tenants.
On the inside?
Yeah, and we can put a note on that if that's necessary, but that's our intent. We're not intending to rent spaces for someone to park their large truck.
Okay.
Unless they also rent the spot.
Okay.
So if you would like, we could certainly add that as a condition.
Okay. Yep.
Do you have a way to arrange that parking where there's less necessity for the trucks to have to back up? So being able to pull into a spot and then pull out forward? Is there a way to do the circulation
No.
where it's kind of like a one-way circulation?
No, really, no. We place it so they will pull in, but whenever you pull in, you have the backup afterwards. So there's always going to be a backup. There's no way to just pull in and pull straight back out, not for trucks.
How's that going to react with any emergency vehicles that need to get up there?
There's more than enough room for a fire truck to come in and back up. We have a very large area, over 60 feet of area for a vehicle to come in and back up. So we believe it's more than sufficient for a fire truck.
Have we looked at that site circulation just to see, do we have the truck turns and everything for that site?
Yes, I've supplied the truck turns.
I'm not sure if HVEA has reviewed that specifically.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I don't have comments from them yet.
So we'll have an opportunity to see that at our next meeting. So any other comments from the public? If you have something, please come to the podium and sign in and let us know who you are.
My name is Sue Smallhorn. I live on Glen Ridge. I'll sign in. Just to reiterate, the gentleman with the noise concern, in the past, this board denied an applicant a kennel on their property because of the noise that echoes off of that mountain. We lost a lot of trees in addition to that during that tornado we had.
Microburst.
That microburst tornado. The woods are not as thick as they may look, especially once the leaves are down. We on our street can hear the DOT trucks moving when they're filling up for the road conditions in the morning and at night when they're coming back. So there will be a lot of noise. I just wanted to reiterate his point on noise. I don't think it's going to be as quiet as people think. I don't know if we can see the lights for that facility from our street, but we can hear the noise for sure.
Okay.
And I'm Brian Smallhorn, 14 Glen Ridge Road. One other additional question I had, or actually, the wash basin that you have, is that all going to be contained that gets washed off those vehicles, or is it being washed onto the pavement?
It's all.
It's an self-contained, does it get trapped?
Mr. Berger, if you don't mind, please come to the microphone.
The wash area, as well as the entire parking lot, goes through a water oil separator and drains into an infiltrator system. It will be infiltrating in the ground, and overflow will go out into the storm basins.
But the oil's contained in that oil water.
In the
Not just the wash area, the entire, because the trucks will wash and then back off. We felt that just not to limit the area with the small oil water separator. We sized it for the entire back parking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Any other comments by the public? So I think there's still a few items that you're going to be addressing that were brought up tonight, and so we'll keep the public hearing open for another meeting. Could I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
I'm sorry, to which date?
Will you be prepared to probably answer a lot of the questions that were raised tonight at the next meeting? Yes. Very good, which would be the May 16th, 2023 meeting. Okay, so a motion to adjourn to the May 16th, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So the last item on the agenda is the Valley Christian Church.
I can write it.
That got quiet.
Yeah.
He's doing that. I just want to thank everybody for your service, because I would never want to do what you guys did. That's for sure.
It's really not as hard as it looks.
Well, it depends on how difficult you're going to be tonight, Dan.
That's right.
Yeah. And
How long you're keeping us here?
I've known him since high school. So.
That's nice.
Anyone who's going to be affected.
Did it go off yet?
Yeah, no. Oh, that
see it here.
There we go.
Okay, so good evening. I'm Steve Whalen of Whalen Architecture. I'm the architect for this project. I'm joined tonight by Dan Gilman. He's the operations pastor for Valley Christian Church. So our proposal is for the expansion and the connection of 2 parking lots. So right now, they're on 2 separate parcels, but Valley owns both properties. They own, obviously, the church property and then the adjacent property to the southwest. So we're in the process, or I should say, the church is in the process right now of merging those 2 lots into one. The property on the southwest, that's unshattered, is in there right now. So they're actually in the process of moving out. So Valley's going to be taking over that building, hence we want to join the 2 properties together and join the 2 parking lots together. So we know, we have received actually the letter from Christian Moore with a list of things that we do have to address, like the grading, soil and erosion, and things like that. So, but we just wanted to at least get before the board, see if they had any comments. We know like what we have to do as far as like the civil drawings. We have engaged a civil engineer to address those things, but this is just like a preliminary, just want to get feedback from the board, make sure we're headed in the right direction and that this looks like this project can move forward.
Is there a height difference between the 2 existing lots that you're connecting?
Height difference?
A height difference, yeah.
Is there a slope?
Like grade?
Yeah, there is. I'll bring pictures for the next planning board meeting. So between, can you guys see the cursor?
Yes.
So this lot over here is a bit higher, it's a few feet higher than over here where we're going to be grading. So we have to, obviously like stormwater is going to be an issue. We're going to have to regrade in that area.
And then are you trying to change any of the ingress or egress points with the connection, or just connecting the
Yeah, actually just connecting the 2, because right now the way, because like anything that's in gray on this site plan, that's just going to be new asphalt paving. So you can see the lot, I'll call it the unshattered lot for right now. That unshattered lot, it actually stops short of how far back the property goes. So yeah, we're trying to actually make the unshattered lot bigger for the overflow of parking. So that's actually going to help with like the ingress and egress. Because like right now, the church does use the unshattered lot, but this lot, the main lot for the church, there's, like in later phases, we do want to address, because like this right now, that's a 2-way, that's one way in, one way out. But this right here, right in front of the church, that's only one way. So we're hoping that, by joining the 2 lots and creating this, it's going to create a lot better flow.
How many parking spaces will you end up with then?
We will end up,
145 according to this.
Yeah. It says 145.
145.
31?
Here, you definitely cannot see that.
Oh, okay.
I believe it was like 31 or 32.
Yeah, it says you're going to expand the parking areas on the lots by 30 spaces for a total of 145 spaces, according to this resolution.
Yep, there we go. So there's 115 right now, adding 30, going up to 145.
And do you attribute it to a growth in your congregation? Is that the game
we're
plan?
definitely growing a lot.
Okay.
In fact, this past Sunday, I didn't tell you, was our highest between online and in person. It was like over 1,300 people. So,
Wow.
yeah, we're definitely growing, which is a great problem to have.
But that's spread out.
Yeah, parking is our first gate that we have to get past.
It's spread out over 3 services, though. That's not all at once.
Right.
So
Okay.
I just want to, it's not 1,300 people showing up at once. That's a much bigger problem.
Is there any additional pedestrian access or sidewalks that you need as you're connecting the 2, if you're going to have people walking that longer distance?
Yes, and this is just a preliminary sketch for you guys to see so that we can get in here and see if there's anything jumping out at you that says, oh, no, we wouldn't want this or we wouldn't want that. We're definitely going to engage with a site engineer to incorporate like that great part where it says one, that's all new sidewalk there. You can see there a little outline of what looks like a Tic Tac there. That's a propane tank we're gonna have to move, get out of there. There's a lot of things that are gonna be happening that you'll see on the site plan that we plan to bring back to you, obviously. But just for now, we wanted to get the okay to move forward with that, so we could get a site engineer involved.
Right.
What will become of the building that you said Unshattered is moving out of?
We're going to make offices there.
So will they be used during the week, on Sundays? Will that parking be designated for that as well?
Yeah, during the week, people will be parking in there. We have about 12 people on staff. So some of them will be parked in their church building and some of them will be parked in the old boutique building.
Got it.
But they won't be used like on a Sunday? There won't be people in the offices and in the church at the same time?
Right, Sundays will all be about the church. So, but we do use those parking spots. The whole staff parks over in the Unshattered to make more room for the church parking. And we have, in the past, run out. Luckily, we have some nice neighbors like the vets on the other side, lets us park there. So, but we're definitely expanding. Not just expand, construct. I missed that. I didn't get that. Okay.
Is there a lot of overlap on Sundays between services? Is that part of the problem, or is it just that there's that many people?
There's both. We try to, so basically, we have a 9 o'clock service that goes to 10, and then the next service starts at 10:30. So we have a half an hour to kind of get people out and then get people in. And that's typically how it goes. So there's like a half an hour. Usually, like this past Easter, we cut the service short so we would have a little bit more time because we anticipated a lot more people. So we try to manage that.
So as you're expanding, one thing you might consider, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact layout of your buildings, but if you have doors that you think people will use that maybe they don't use so much anymore, but it'll be the closest door when they're walking, maybe consider accessible sites, parking spots near doors you think folks will use. So you have an opportunity to kind of think about the layout of the spots near your access points to the buildings.
Yeah, and I can indicate those on like when we resubmit, because I believe, and just Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the handicap spots are already along here, because there's one entrance right here and there's another entrance right over here.
Right.
But even with that said, with this expanded parking lot, if we do need to put in an accessible ramp, yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have a ramp in the back there in the corner. We have a ramp in the front, and we also designated all the front parking spots that are kind of up by that little hand there. There's 4 spots there that are designated handicap.
Okay.
So we could make sure that's all on the site plan so that you're understanding where we have it.
Now, do you feel comfortable that with this expansion of parking on Sunday, that would alleviate you from having to park at your neighbors? Because I think like concerns about them walking on the road, that's a very busy road, or how they would, make their way from those points over. Would this new parking then kind of eliminate that need, or?
That's a great question, a great point. So we do have pathways between these 2 buildings, the storage building that it's called, or the one-story building. So the
It's like right
boutique
here.
and the other one, there's a pathway there that kind of goes so people don't have to go out to the road and walk up. And also, sometimes if we have to use the veterinarian's parking, there's also a cutover between the parking lots so they don't have to go out to the road and walk along the road. So, yeah, we definitely don't want to, we avoid that at all costs, having people have to cross the road.
And then lastly, probably one of the most important questions that I would ask is, with the addition of this parking and what's going on there on Sunday or whenever your services take place, from a fire standpoint, is equipment able to freely move through that parking lot based on a full lot?
I think it's going to be better now, but.
Yeah.
Actually, when we reviewed the plan, we like the idea. It actually gives us more freedom. The only problem we have is in the parking in the front of the building. We cannot access that with a fire truck when, and I've been there many times for alarms, when there are people parked there.
So that would be a
From a fire standpoint, we
consideration.
would like to see that become a fire zone and no parking. And I know you use that for handicap. If it's a drop-off zone, that's fine. But for parking, we can't get in there.
So that would be very important, so that if you were in full service and had an emergency.
So those 4 spots that we have handicapped, you're saying we should eliminate
in front of the
those as
building.
we add these other ones?
You can make it a drop-off zone, like a
Drop-off zone.
loading and unloading
Yes.
zone, but
We
not
would
permanent.
appreciate that greatly because we just can't get it with cars in there. It's almost
Yeah, I
impossible to get a
remember.
fire engine.
I think I remember you now.
I've been there since.
From the alarms, yeah. No, that's a very good point.
I mean, we could also look into maybe like downsizing that island that's out there as well. I know the signage is out there. Like, you know, if we could maybe like blend the two of them together, we still have the handicap, but we also have like a fire zone, like a no parking area. But we'll look, when we engage the civil engineer, we'll bring that to his
The problem
attention.
is with our ladder truck, it's not just the width of the truck. If we set it up in there, we've got another 5 feet on each side for the outriggers that have to be set up. It would take up that whole space.
Okay. I think what we'll also do is we'll show like some of the turning radii on
Yes.
here
Yes.
for some of the apparatus.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you said this was the first part of your kind of expansion plan. What comes after this? What's your, like, long-term? I know you said something about, you know, this would help with entrances and exits because this is part of a bigger plan.
We are investigating buying the back half of the veterinarian's office, or not office, back half of their property. We spoke to them, they were open to it, but they're dealing with some health issues, so we're letting them sort that out. But.
It would be for parking? It would be just land for parking?
Right, yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of landlocked, so it's really can't be used for anything except for if they want to expand their dog area. But what we shared with them is like if we could get, you know, say, they do have like an area that's, I don't know, maybe from here to there, big space, fencing yard for their animals and stuff. So we said we could go like 10 feet past that spot and then buy the back half of their acreage, which is about a half an acre. And then make that another parking spot for another like maybe 20 spots. They could use that as well, you know, all the week, because we let them use our parking all week. And they let us use their parking on Sundays. So they were open to that. So that would be another addition to this parking improvement plan. And in that one, I'm not sure, we were thinking about possibly making one way in front of the church there, and then a one-way out going on that longer, you know, what would that be, the west or east strip of parking? Work with the highway department to see if there's a better way to kind of have traffic flow. But we haven't, you know, we're not even close to that yet. This is phase one. We have enough between making the offices and this work.
And that's going to be reviewed by the New York State DOT, not the highway department. That's right.
Whoever's required at that point.
Yeah, one of the, just a statement, they're going to be taking the 2 lots, combining them into one. So now you're going to have one parcel with 3 access points onto 82. So that may be something that is considered by DOT, but they are existing. But, you know, this is a sketch right now. The only other thing that we wanted to know is, okay, Steve actually responded to the letter earlier today. Apparently, because I had questions regarding the wells and septics, apparently they are on town water. County parcel access is lagging behind. Are you on sewer?
No.
Okay.
But the septic is all in front.
Okay.
So that if you see, unshattered is totally in front, and that little secondary building off the church, everything's in front of that. So
Okay.
there's no septic or leach or anything that goes behind those buildings or encroaches anywhere in any of this.
Okay, because the survey that I saw for Lot C, which is the south lot, it did show indicate a tank behind
There is a-
unshattered.
There is a propane tank there, yeah.
Oh,
in the
yeah,
ground.
it didn't say what kind of tank it was. I didn't know if it was a septic tank, propane tank. I just
Yeah, it's a
had that
propane tank,
question.
and I got with George from Crown, and we came up with a plan that we'll also incorporate in our site plan for you guys to review on moving the 1,000-gallon tank out, putting 2 500-gallon tanks in behind the unshattered building, away from anywheres where there, playground areas. Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah, so we're going, we do have a plan to move that tank and relocate it so that it's, not anywhere where it shouldn't be.
The fire commissioner has a
Yeah,
question.
just, I'm glad you're growing. Just as in this progression, keep in mind, I want to make sure that the amount of parking you have doesn't outpace the safe capacity of the building itself. Just keep that in mind as you continue to grow.
All right,
Right.
appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I think based on your response to some of the issues that came up tonight and some of the things you already have in the works, I'd say we're favorably disposed to the project. Look forward to seeing the next iteration and go from there.
So I think, I don't know if it's appropriate tonight, but at some point, the board will have to consider whether or not this would be a minor site plan amendment and not require a public hearing, or if you think that the changes that are going to be made to the site would require a public hearing, because at that point, we would want to set one, but I think they have some work to do before that. So I just want you guys to be
I
aware.
guess one thing that actually was just brought up by the fire commissioner, which was pretty valid, based on the expansion of parking, will that require something with
Well, I
regards
think
to
there's
the
a
building?
capacity in the building. I asked that question when we met. There's a capacity in the building right now, and the parking requirement was pretty low, because right now the parking is 1 space for every 5 seats. That's how they do the church parking. So I think it was only like 60 or 70 spots that were required. So this is like double that right now that they're providing, but they do have a capacity that they can't go over based on their, what's allowed for public assembly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and what was that? What's the maximum allowable capacity there inside the building?
I believe it's 300 total.
When was the building built?
Early 80s, I think.
That fell under the green building code book, and I know assembly has definitely changed since then. But I'm gonna, as we're doing this whole process, I'll definitely be doing like an updated building code analysis.
Right, yeah, because if you end up with, what does the total parking spot count end up? If it's 100, and then that gets you to 500 people, assuming, that
Right.
you're not getting 5 people in every car, but
Oh, don't worry, if we get 500 people, we will find seats.
And we're outside.
I'd like to call them souls,
I just don't want to make sure you don't find yourself in a spot where you've created more parking than
Right.
the building will hold.
Yeah, we also have a loft area that we're not using for seating, which is like probably another 100 seats that we could get, and we're, so we are looking at all things at the rate of growth that we're experiencing. We're going to have to, which is a great problem again. We feel very blessed, but whatever we do, we want your guys' sign off on, so,
We'll definitely be mindful of the code and
yeah.
So, excellent. Looks like you're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
So.
Thanks, Dan.
If there's no other business to come before the planning board, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So,
All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
No opposition.